Together, all of you, my relations, we can change this. We agreed to this in treaty, peace and friendship, to live side by side equally.
Thank you all for taking the time and energy, many coming from some distances. When I looked the other day, I realized that we're covered all the way from Quebec to BC with contributors here, and that's just a fantastic testament to both the humans who said yes and the mission that we've set ourselves on.
I vividly remember going to visit with Vincent, late Vincent, and sitting at his kitchen table where we often would go visit. We would dream of the things we desperately need to see change around, and quality of life for Indigenous people, the stereotypes, the biases, the pain that we see our people suffering. And I think if we educate folks, we have a chance to change that. So to see all of you here, you know, I welcome you because I think we all aspire to see change, and that can happen. Now look at us, we are going to walk, and so thank you. You have helped enrich my life in so many ways. Husband is going to drive, it's going to be our driver.
Plays my arm. Right now we're sitting in the River Valley in the city of Edmonton, Alberta. The next few days will begin the convention of the Health Sciences Association of Alberta, where representatives of 27,000 members of our union will be in a convention hall making decisions about the future of our union. Our board understood that we know not enough about truth and reconciliation. But what we can do at HSAA is clear that space for those that have an understanding, that know what needs to be done next. And starting on Friday will be the Walk for Common Ground, where members of HSAA, religious communities, and other like-minded will join in a walk from Edmonton to Calgary over 300 kilometers spanning 14 days. I will tell you that there was a phone call, yes, I made to Scott and said, Jesus, Scott, there's some stuff going on in BC that's hitting the news, and I am concerned. Is that the right word?
I think you said, are we on the right side of history here, brother?
And my question was, if we're going to go do this, are we on the right side of history? And that was my fear, and that's my lack of understanding, to be perfectly clear. I don't know what's going on in all of this. I don't know what's the right thing. And you said, yes, we are. And I put my trust, man. That's all I can do, right? I said, you've got my support. I'm just going to say go for it. And if we're on the right side, then it might be tough at times. And you guys might have your challenges on this journey. I don't know how to make things better in the future. When I hear the elders talk, and when I hear our team that's working on this project, and they're enlightening me on conversations that I have never heard before. And so for me, what's important is that I create that space, that our team of HSA board of directors supports this work that's going on. We will continue to try and learn and grow from it and be supportive of these conversations. As healthcare providers, it's about making people whole. That is the goal of every healthcare provider, is to work with these clients and patients to make them whole again into their lives. And how do we start to repair generations of damage that have gone on? Again, I don't have that answer.
We are at the Edmonton Convention Center this morning. From here we depart just before noon on the beginning of our walk. The Mennonite Church doesn't have, to my knowledge, doesn't have a lot of experience collaborating with unions, for example. I just think it's really neat that we have this opportunity to work together and also to meet Indigenous elders from this area and to walk as a group.
We're in the traditional territory of the Cree people. What's happening today is an awakening to look at commonalities and to be able to have the discussions, to acknowledge the equality of treaty for all. I knew growing up there was indifferences. I never understood them until I became an adult, until I became a parent. And then I said to myself, from role modeling of my grandparents and my parents' kindness, I need to get rid of the anger. So I spent years, and I still have it, working with my anger But I think going on this walk, it's about getting past the anger and then looking at making the space ethically safe for other people beyond myself. We can begin the conversations, we can look at it, and we can step forward as treaty.
This year, as a big project, we decided to really examine our role as settlers in our relationship with Indigenous people. We took the hefty objective of doing this walk from here to Calgary with the view of stopping in communities all along the way to engage our fellow unionists, and this is for you. And other citizens in this important dialogue. One of the leaders who set us off on this journey and ceremony is another friend, Vince Steinauer. Today is his birthday. Unfortunately, he passed away suddenly a few months ago. So we're honoring that as much as anything, that we've started this process of us as settler people starting to understand the Indigenous story in a more profound way. I think we need to understand that us as settlers also benefit from what should have been done 300 years ago when the treaty was signed, that talked about us walking a parallel path together, of sharing knowledge with each other, of sharing the land with each other. You're proving as health science practitioners that we're no longer satisfied with the disproportionate impact on the social determinants of health that we see among the Indigenous people that we serve on a regular basis. Hopefully this becomes a start of larger dialogues, that we encourage other unions to take a similar position and really honestly make an action component out of truth and reconciliation. I'd like to pass it over to Pat just for a few words. Thank you.
Wow, my dear friend Scott, I thank him. As I sat here this morning listening to your Vice President Trudy, she said that we need to take a stand on the things that really matter. Well, I would suggest to you that treaties matter because we all benefit from those treaties. We have not had an opportunity to truly get to know each other. Every one of us in this room, we've all lost out. Because what I do know for sure is that historic trauma is rolling out every day in the lives of Indigenous people. And many of you on the front line see that every day. And that may create bias and it may create stereotypes as we don't understand that history. I would encourage you to look at historic trauma, look at the research on adverse childhood experiences. We are called in our own teachings to come to understand each other as families. Red family, yellow family, black family, white family. When I think about those treaties, I think about your ancestors and I think about my ancestors and how Indigenous people who love this land, who openly took your ancestors and welcomed them and agreed to share with an openness and to help. A project was done in Saddle Lake a number of years ago, 10 years ago. And the lifespan of man was 47 years old. And this is 2019, so that would have been 2009. Women, it's 55. My brother, Vincent, who is my spiritual brother in terms of ceremony, he died at 55. When I listened this morning, I've never been to a meeting like this before. But what I have to believe is that you are going to live by what you're saying. Your speaker from Manitoba talked about mobilizing people. She talked about public engagement, and she talked about coalition building. We need you. I need you as my white family members, as my yellow family members, my black family members, to stand with us.
I think we're anticipating challenges, some that we can maybe foresee and others that we can't. One relatively new one being the air quality right now. There's a lot of smoke coming in from the northwest and the forest fires, and so that's sort of an added layer of precaution that we weren't anticipating.
Challenges we're dealing with, the smoke in the environment, to walking on cement, to making sure, do I have the right footwear? Have I prepared myself? There's so many variables that you don't have control over. You just have to meet it moment by moment and just stay in the present.
I'm walking to walk the talk. First and foremost, I teach about treaties. I was brought in right at the beginning to lift the pipe to pray for this to happen, and it's here. It's actually a Thunderbird Eagle staff with us, and that, to me, that Thunderbird Eagle staff represents my brother. So my brother is on this walk with us.
Treaties can be part of the foundational fabric of this society, but only if society embraces them for the agreements they were intended to be. Agreements based on the principles of friendship, peace, and respect for all future generations. As a society, we find ourselves in a pivotal moment, and what we do next will set the course for the future.
I guess my self-exploration is to figure out where I can be most effective in allyship. as a settler woman, if there's any specific role and responsibility that I have in initiating these solidarity alliances and teaching others about treaty. So I would like to continue to learn more about it so I can have enough knowledge to be able to pass it on.
When someone asks why I'm walking, one of the things I think of is the HSAA mission statement, which is to make life more equitable for its members, but also for the rest of society. And I think this is such a great, impactful way to live those values.
I anticipate we'll arrive for sure within the next hour, maybe sooner than that. We'll begin by acknowledging the land, the territory, and then we watch the 50-minute treaty talk film, followed by a sharing circle.
The one is like hit me, it's about the residential school, how the people has gone through when the children been taken out away from their family and giving new names, and they were forbidden to use their language and practice their cultures, and even being forced to adopt a new religion. This was one of the most things that personally affect me. I am a father, I have children, I can't imagine someone taking away my children from me.
One of my biggest prayers on this walk is that somehow we can help those who watch the film, who come into the talking circles, to be able to somehow connect. If my family was in that situation, what would I do? What would I feel like? And as I work through that emotion, then I can move from my head to my heart to think, what then can I do going forward in these relationships with Indigenous people to correct and invite a different narrative?
All this time, I heard somebody say residential school, but I thought it was just another school. I didn't get curious. I didn't ask any questions. We need more people to understand and be kind and tell their truth. And it is the beginning in my mind, in my heart, in my world. I began some relationships here that you haven't seen the last of me.
A union decided to step past the bread and butter issues that it normally deals with on behalf of its members, to sort of call unionists back to some of their earliest traditions of, again, like Pat has mentioned before, standing up for injustices, not just in the workplace, but in communities as well. The unionists, because they had been able to sort of achieve a contract, had been able to sort of better the working conditions and benefits for themselves, never stopped there. It was always about bringing others along with. And I think in this case, the fact that we're a health sciences union and in our day-to-day work lives, encounter the problems that have arisen because of the inequality.
To see Scott stand before over 500 people and talk to his colleagues about how important this work is, and to see him express his emotion was really impactful for me too, because I love him as my white family member, my brother, and to see him cry and know that if we are going to change the Canadian narrative, it's going to be because we will do it together. We're going to get into this history and we're going to ask people to move from their head to their heart, to come into a space to have conversations together. And that by doing that, there is hope for a very different future.
I'm no better than my walking buddy. I'm no worse than my walking buddy. And that these treaties need to be honored, and the spirit and intent of these treaties are not being seen in settler, in Western communities. And we really need help with that. We really need help with that. So that's what I hope to walk away with. As Dr. Patricia Makoka says, more allies.
Well, I'm looking forward to, again, just connecting with as many walkers as possible in the time that I do have, but also everyone I feel has a little message for each of us, and I'm just, again, absorbing each of those little bits of messages that I could go back and perhaps share or just reflect on.
Mark.
Yes, I'm here.
Patricia brought us here.
Yes.
But what makes you stay?
What makes me stay is, again, a feeling of being in the right place at the right time. And I think back to, again, the civil rights movement in the 60s when I was born, and historically looking back on those who made those walks. The Indigenous way of knowing connects the mind, body, and spirit, and that speaks to my own personal life, but also in my professional practice as a teacher, working with Indigenous youth and non-Indigenous youth. I think it's important to understand the work that needs to get done. What makes me stay is because I just, again, a sense that it's the place to be, and that's what I've learned from you. It's a moment in time that I feel that is it's a proper fit for me. There's nowhere else I'd rather be than here.
Me too.
Treaty carries the Creator's laws, that kindness, honesty, sharing, and strength. The treaties are forever. The treaties protect the lands, not only for us, as Indigenous peoples, as the first peoples here. It protects the lands for all of us to live a good life here. And indeed, we shared the lands for that purpose, and we were instructed to. So I believe we're carrying on that kindness, honesty, sharing, and strength.
In one sense, the effectiveness, the results of this walk are intangible. What does a group of 30 people walking down the road with signs, treaty flags, eagle staff, and prayers in their heart, what does that do to a watching, driving public? I'm not sure. Like, does it stoke a story? Does it stoke resistance? Does it spur someone on to actually do a little exploration or cultivate a relationship? Maybe.
I'm Métis. I'm from Métis Nation of Alberta. Also, Michelle Calahoo is my great-grandfather who signed Treaty 6. I wasn't exactly sure what I was getting into, but the people have been wonderful so far and here for the right reasons, very kind.
a walk like this, like we're only a group of 30 people. Does it make that big of a difference?
It has to start somewhere, right? You know, like eventually, you know, this will take hold, and I think, you know, it might be a small group now, but you know, it'll keep doubling, and you know, eventually, you know, just having everybody here go out and tell people the true story of the treaties and everything else is gonna, you know, affect people.
Kind of crazy. I thought it would take more of a physical toll on me, and maybe it will. We're only on day 4. But I swear that the energy of this walk is driving me and creates this crazy adrenaline every morning of just wanting to wake up and welcome the sunshine and thank Creator for another blessed day, and for all of these people who have come from across Canada to embody this walk and to stand for something that has so much significance and so much personal value to me. So I just giving thanks every day and being grateful for everything from the dishwashers to the setting up of the teepee, to those that are packing food, to just even the friendships and the conversations and the richness of the walk every day has just been pretty powerful. I really did feel that I was lifted up today by the energy of our youth, and so that was pretty cool.
Are going to continue going another 15 kilometers or so.
One kid popped up his hand and he says, "Can I walk all the way to Calgary with you?" And I just thought, wow, wouldn't that be amazing?
We appreciate your energy and we wish you well at the rest of the day at school.
I've lived in Alberta for the last 11 to 12 years now. This is my first time ever that I'm experiencing prairies in this way. When my family immigrated to Canada, I was part of the problem. I had some very racist thoughts in my head as well, and I said some things that I regret saying, and thinking some things that I regret thinking even. And if we are not part of a solution, then we are the problem. When the treaties were made in the first place, it was about friendship. It's about sharing the land. It's about building relationships where, as the Turo Wampum that I've learned a lot about on this walk, where two cultures parallelly living side by side in harmony without having the audacity to change each other. We can influence each other, we can trade things, right? Trade culture, trade language, trade dances, but not imposing our laws on each other. And that for me is why the connection land is where it starts. It's a way, it's a platform we're building, it's a base we're building where we can kind of launch that off and go back to some of the ways how the treaties were formed in the first place. It took a lot to organize this, and I'm just so grateful for them in taking that leadership that has now allowed me to take my leadership that I'm gonna be taking away from this and sharing with my friends and families and coworkers and people that I am gonna be in touch with. And it inspires me. I can bring that voice back into Alberta Health Services. I can bring that voice back to as being a frontline worker, as being a respiratory therapist. You know, I can be educating even people that I work in the hospitals with or clinics with. And for me, going forward, that's going to be my journey, is to find those allies and inspire them as well, kind of like how Pat did in this walk.
Welcome to Musqueam. You know, Musqueam is a large number of nations combined, and what we saw was a welcome. They came out and greeted us. They took the Eagle staffs, their leaders, walked us in, and that for me was wonderful to bring our family members into, because some of our walkers had never been on a reserve. For them to come and experience that welcome was really, really wonderful.
You know, the outpouring of love was incredible from beginning to end, the tiny things that they considered.
They provided us a big feast, they provided dance, they provided ceremony.
The Jingle Push dance is a Medicine Push dance that originated out in the Alberta region.
It's really a pretty awesome life when you kind of start to unlearn stuff and start to bring a little bit of curiosity to it. If we really want to be stewards, good stewards of the land and the stories that are carried within the land, then we need to learn about that. And when we do that with our children and we create those spaces, the kids teach us. The kids who have shown up on this trip, they are the fastest learners. They're able to regulate into this because they're not carrying the baggage of blocking off that the world can't be different. They don't carry that baggage. They're young, they're hopeful.
We're all the same. Can I give you a hug? Thank you for doing modeling.
And so then this side, that's the highway, right?
Really appreciate that. What a great gift.
Amazing. So Kira made this, Walk for Common Ground. This is the school that supports us. So here if you can see some hands and reconciliation.
I didn't even really learn about treaties much when I was in school. I didn't know what treaty I lived on until I graduated. And yeah, I've seen a lot of discrimination and racism in my home community and with people that I care about. And so I think that by walking, I'm able to take a stand as a young person and say, no, like, I don't think that this is right. And I think that we can do something about this. And by having conversations along the way, I'm not only opening up dialogue in other communities between Calgary and Edmonton, but I'm able to open up dialogue in my own community as well. I've always kind of thought that coming from a small rural town, I wouldn't receive this support. And if anything, I'd receive people telling me that, like, I don't know, not that it's worthless to do this, but that there's no point, you know, or that as a settler, as someone who has mostly settler ancestry, yeah, that it's not my place. And so to see everyone's coming out, yeah, it's just really important and impactful for me. Out from Camp Valacqua, they're giving us a bit of a break for the day, making sure that I don't get any more burnt than I am. Thanks, guys.
Take care of yourself.
You want to get that other side?
When I drove Scott's truck and I was the rear protecting vehicle of our walkers, and knowing what it's like to take those steps and how long those steps are and sometimes the pain that you're enduring, it was emotional for me. That part of it when I first drove, because I knew what that pain was like to experience when you're walking. And here we were as some of us strangers, but allies who are on a path to a better future. And so people would risk to come into a conversation and walk and talk and suffer that physical experience. That was profound. That was a moment when I sat in that vehicle by myself, you know, with tears, because I know what it feels like to walk that pain physically on this path, and to have others do the same, to be willing to come into that same experience. That, again, was a very good moment for me. I won't forget that one.
It's just been really powerful to see what the weather does as we walk. We've had almost, like one of the walkers said, we've had almost every element.
We agreed to this in treaty, peace and friendship, to live side by side equally. And we can deconstruct and reconstruct a better world together.
I know we only have one more day to go. It's quite emotional today. I came here to stay with strangers, and all of a sudden I feel like it's my family now. When I was working in hospital, like I have always seen people talking about Indigenous people, saying that they are the most privileged people, they get everything free, and they abuse the system. So everyone kind of hated these people. I don't know where it was coming from. And the sad part is I couldn't even correct anyone, and that really bugs me now when I think about it. So I have a goal and I have a responsibility of correcting my fellow colleagues. I have to let them know the truth behind it. I have been to Muskagees. They are the kindest, respectful people you can find in the earth. They were so kind to us as strangers, and they were very loving. I'm a healthcare provider. For me, giving is always from my side. I never received this kind of kindness and respect throughout my life because I was always the giving person. And this 15 days, I got a lot of love from all the people around me.
This is it. We arrive in Calgary this afternoon. Sounds like we'll be greeted by a bunch of folks from the union and some Indigenous drummers and singers. So super excited about that reception.
Only the beginning of the learning that needs to continue to really understand the things that we might be able to do to truly honor treaty and to fight the injustice.
Started out as bimuhteawan, walking. After a while, I wepuan, we rest. Meat so and we ate. And then we talked. We start to know about some of these laws. We start to know about kindness. And we chugamatuan, helping each other. We did lots of matuan, we cried on the way. We did lots of agusketuntuan, we embraced each other. And we did lots of sinamatuan, learning.
We are all treaty people. We are all called into this work. We are all called to lift up those Creator's laws of kindness and honesty and sharing and strength and determination through our prayers. It is with gratitude and love, that I know we are called into this work. It's us on the ground, those, grassroots, just common folk who really aspire to see a different world. And we do that one step at a time.